And now we will speak to the head of Azerbaijan's Institute for Democracy and Human Rights, Ahmad Shahidov, about Armenia's violation of the ceasefire in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. What is the latest you can tell us about what's happening on the ground?
Yes, good afternoon. Greetings from Baku. Despite the ceasefire agreement reached between the parties, the Armenian side continues to fire on especially civilians and civilian objects for the second day. And the Armenian armed forces do not adhere to the humanitarian truce and continue inflicting rocket and artillery, especially located away from the area of combat operation. And on October 10 and 11 at different times, the invasive troops fired at the Ganja, Mingechevir cities, and villages of Goranboy, Tartar, Agdam, Akjabadi, Fizuli, and Jabrail regions. As a result of the shelling, there are numerous casualties among the civilian population. I want to mention especially the civilian population, and the civilian infrastructure has been seriously damaged. On the night of October 11, today, Ganja, the second largest city in Azerbaijan.
What can you tell us about the latest of the situation of the civilian casualties? How are we doing with that?
This attack killed 7 civilians and injured 34 others, including minors. And the shelling of civilians and cities by the Armenian armed forces after the humanitarian ceasefire agreement is another clear example of barbarism, and shows that the ceasefire calls of the Armenian leadership are nothing but hypocrisy. And it is a manifestation of the immoral behavior of Armenia's political military leadership, and attacking civilians with destructive missiles out of the theater of military operation is a war crime. And Armenia's deliberate firing on civilians, homes, civilian objects, and medical personnel as a part of its aggressive policy against Azerbaijan once again demonstrates the country's disregard for fundamental norms and principles of international law, including international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions, as well as shows that it is clearly violating its obligations and is far from the principles of humanism. And we strongly condemn these acts of aggression by Armenia and call on the international community to take decisive steps to force the aggressor Armenia to comply with international obligations. And I want to mention that the full responsibility for the situation in the region lies with the Armenian political and military leadership. And I think a ceasefire calls of Armenian leadership are hypocritical, and the policy of vandalism and barbarism of Armenia against the Azerbaijani civilian population continues today, and it is an act of genocide against the Azerbaijani people.
Mr. Shahidov, in your assessment, why is Armenia violating the ceasefire? What could there be their motivation for this violation of the ceasefire? Despite Russia's mediation efforts, why would they feel entitled enough to be able to commit such acts?
After several defeats in Nagorno-Karabakh region in frontline, Armenia tries to provoke Azerbaijan and involve third parties, especially Russia, to this conflict, and by firing on especially civil village, civil infrastructure, and civilian population of Azerbaijan, Armenian authorities try to make panic, chaos inside the Azerbaijani population, and they wish Azerbaijani army to fire the territory of Armenia by this way to provoke Azerbaijan and to involve third parties, especially Russia, to this conflict, saying that Azerbaijan has attacked Armenian territory. And I will also like to point out that Armenia receives Smerch missiles under the humanitarian aid today, and this is a fact, and the Azerbaijani side has enough evidence and proof in this regard. Arming the occupying country means indirectly supporting the occupation, which will further increase tensions in the region. And regarding the latest situation on frontline, I can say that on the night from 10 to 11 of October, the entire front situation was stable, tense, and the Armenian armed forces, which did not comply with the humanitarian truce agreed in Moscow, have concentrated their forces and military equipment, and again attempted to attack in small groups in the Hadrut and Jabrail direction to regain their lost positions. And I think the tension in the region remains, and Armenia violates this ceasefire agreement received in Moscow, and all enemy attempts to attack at night were suppressed by fire as a result of the actions of the Azerbaijani army. Again, a large number of enemy.
So what do you think?
Well,
Why is the international media? Why is the international media silent on this? What keeps them silent, despite them breaking all norms of the Geneva Convention, committing war crimes, breaking a ceasefire? Why is it that the international media is slow to respond to this?
You know, this is the next example of double standards by international organizations. You know, international organizations, especially OSCE, the Council of Europe, United Nations, they accept the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, which is the basic principle of international law, UN Geneva Convention, and all international legislation. But again, as we observed these double standards last 30 years against Azerbaijan, and from the first day of these clashes on frontline, when Armenia violated the ceasefire and fired the civilian population, we didn't hear any critical statement from OSCE, from the Council of Europe, European Union, from other international organizations. They just called both sides to stop the fire and to start the peaceful negotiation. They didn't criticize Armenian provocations. They didn't claim that the territorial integrity principle of...
Mr. Shahidov, so representing Azerbaijan, do you think that this means that the ceasefire is over?
Yeah, sure. From the first hours of this ceasefire agreement get to power yesterday, Armenia started to violate this ceasefire agreement and re-attack the Azerbaijani positions, also civil village. And it means that the ceasefire is over. And in response to these attacks, Azerbaijan started large-scale operations and destroys all these fire points of Armenian armed forces. It means that peaceful ceasefire agreement reached in Moscow is nothing, and our Armenian leadership violates this agreement as well. And that's why we cannot say any ceasefire in the region right now, and intensive clashes are going on frontline. Also, in this, the Armenia attacks the cities, village far from the front line. I mean, Ganja, Tartar, Bardar. So there is not any chance for ceasefire. Also, I want to mention there is no chance for any peaceful negotiation of this conflict, because after the ceasefire agreement in Moscow, the Armenian authorities once again declared about the so-called independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, which again showed that Armenian authorities, they are not ready for peaceful negotiations. They just want to gain more time to gain more power and to re-attack the Azerbaijani position. So I think these clashes will continue.
So how will Azerbaijan react to this? My last question to you. How will Azerbaijan react to this, and how far will they be willing to go in order to finally make sure that this conflict does not persist, that Armenia does not break any more ceasefire violations, does not corner Azerbaijan by saying that, yes, we do support a ceasefire, we do want peace, and then at the same time be continuing with these violations? How do you think Azerbaijan will resolutely respond now?
You know, Azerbaijan operates in framework of international law, and defends its territory, defends its borders, and responds to these provocations and neutralize, destroy all these fire points. And Azerbaijan's position in this situation is unique, not changed. Azerbaijan demand to withdraw Armenian troops from occupied Azerbaijan territories. And Azerbaijan is for peaceful negotiation of this conflict. That's why last 28 years we were peaceful negotiations, and we called all international community and Armenia to respect the requirements of international law and to resolve this conflict in the framework of OSCE Minsk Group statements, UN Security Council 4 resolutions about the withdrawal of all external troops from occupied Azerbaijani land. But unfortunately, these last 28 years, all possibilities, all opportunities for peaceful resolutions of this conflict are exhausted. So that's why Azerbaijani side tries to solve this conflict by military operations, and we do not wait any constructive position, constructive steps from Armenian side. So in response to all this provocation, Azerbaijan will continue these large-scale operations, military operations, and liberate occupied Azerbaijan territories. In any case, Azerbaijan is ready to start these peaceful negotiations today as well. But in the background, we should start these discussions. We should start this negotiation in the framework of principle of territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. There is no other choice for Armenia how to accept the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, which is recognized by all international community and UN member states.
All right, Mr. Ahmad Shahidov, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.